Ciao a tutti! Hi everybody! Today we're going to be talking about a verb tense, a very common verb tense, which is called imperfetto. This verb tense is used to talk about the past. The nice thing about this verb is that it's quite regular, so you don't have to remember a lot of exceptions. A couple of irregularities are also to be studied with this verb tense, but in general, it's very straightforward and easy to remember. The tricky part with imperfetto is when you're comparing it with another verb tense, which is passato prossimo. Don't worry, in this video, I'm going to be showing you all the rules of when you actually need to use imperfetto. In a separate video, I have created a comparison between imperfetto and passato prossimo so that you can also learn how to correctly use both of those verb tenses and never make a mistake again. So stay tuned for that one. And now let's focus on the conjugation of the imperfetto. As I said, it's quite a lovely verb tense, meaning it's really easy to conjugate. As you know, you have the three different verbs, the ones that end in are, A-R-E, the ones that end in ere, E-R-E, and the ones that end in ire, I-R-E. The conjugation is very similar to all three of them. For clarity's sake, I will take you down a list of all of these three different conjugations so that you can remember exactly how each of them works. Let's start with lavorare. So the verbs that end with are, A-R-E. You need to take away from lavorare the last three letters, so A-R-E. And you will need to add the different endings. For the verbs that end in are, these are the different endings. Follow the pattern of the verb lavorare. Io lavoravo, tu lavoravi, lui, lei lavorava, noi lavoravamo, voi lavoravate, loro lavoravano. So every time you have a verb that ends with A-R-E, are, you know that you have to conjugate that verb just like we did with lavorare. So the pattern is the same. Take away the last three letters and add the new endings. The same exact thing needs to be done with the verbs that end with ere, E-R-E. Let's do the same with the verb prendere. Io prendevo, tu prendevi, lui, lei prendeva, noi prendevamo, voi prendevate, loro prendevano. Okay? Once again, you take away the last three letters and you add the correct ending. Same exact thing with verbs that end with ire. Let's look at the verb capire. Io capivo, tu capivi, lui, lei capiva, noi capivamo, voi capivate, loro capivano. Okay? Once again, take away the last three letters and add the correct ending. As you see, there's only a one-letter change for each of these, so they're very similar and very, very easy to use and remember. Follow the pattern, repeat the verbs, or find new verbs to remember, and say them over and over, and you will master them and you will remember them, okay? As I told you before, this is a very straightforward verb tense, but you do have some irregularities. I will give you 4 different verbs that I suggest that you memorize. I know it's not something that I usually suggest to do because I hate to memorize things, but in this case, it's best to just study them and remember them. There are 4 little verbs, but very, very common, and they're used a lot in Italian. Okay, so here they are. If you want to take notes, or if you simply need a PDF of this video lesson, there is a link that you can click on below this video. Click over there, download the PDF, it's completely free, and you can review and study whenever you can, whenever you want, okay? And so you don't have to take too many notes here on the go because I've basically created the notes for you. Thank you, Giulia. Okay, let's go back to the irregularities. The first irregular verb is fare. Io facevo, tu facevi, lui, lei faceva, noi facevamo, voi facevate, loro facevano. The second verb is bere. Io bevevo, tu bevevi, lui, lei beveva, noi bevevamo, voi bevevate, loro bevevano. The third super important verb is dire. Io dicevo, tu dicevi, lui, lei diceva, noi dicevamo, voi dicevate, loro dicevano. And the last verb, which is extremely important to remember, is the verb essere. Io ero, tu eri, lui, lei era, noi eravamo, voi eravate, loro erano. Remember this last one, okay? Because you will use it all the time. It's the most common one that you're going to use when you're speaking with imperfetto, and it's irregular, okay? So remember at least the verb essere, which is the verb to be. Okay, if you like my video so far, give me a little thumbs up, and let's go to the rules. So when do we use imperfetto? We will use it to talk about the weather, to talk about time, and to talk about a moment in the day. Let's look at a couple of examples. Ieri faceva molto caldo. I'm talking about the past. I know that I'm talking about the past because I have ieri, which is a time expression that means yesterday. I'm talking about the weather. So I'm talking about the fact that yesterday it was very hot. Another example, erano le 8 del mattino e faceva già molto caldo. In this case, I'm talking about time. I'm giving you a moment in time. 8 del mattino. In this case, once again, I'm giving you an idea of what the temperature was, so I'm combining the two. I'm combining time and temperature. You're going to use imperfetto when you're describing a place, a situation, something about a context in the past. Let me give you an example. La città era molto diversa quando ero piccola. C'erano meno macchine e molto meno traffico. In this case, I'm describing how the city used to be when I was little. So I'm taking you back in time and I'm giving you a description of the place, of that actual situation. I'm sort of describing the context around me at that specific moment of time in the past. You will use imperfetto to talk about how things used to be and how they're changed now. So like a sort of little comparison. And basically you can sometimes translate it when you have sentences that say used to, okay? Let's look at this sentence. Vivevo a Milano quando studiavo all'università. This translates to, I used to live in Milan when I studied at university. I'm talking about the past, and I'm telling you that I no longer live in Milan, since I'm telling you that that's what I used to do. And to say that, you use imperfetto, okay? So, studiavo. Let me give you another example. Prima del coronavirus viaggiavo molto. In this case, I'm saying before coronavirus, I traveled a lot. This implies that now, since we're still in the midst of this crazy COVID period, I'm no longer traveling that much. So I'm using imperfetto to say that something has changed from what I used to do in the past to now. You will use imperfetto when you are talking about childhood or age in general. Let's look at a couple of examples. Quando ero piccola, avevo un gattino nero. This means when I was little, I had a little black cat. I'm talking about something of the past because I'm telling you that I was little. So you know that since I'm no longer so little, you know that I'm talking about the past. Okay? Or in another example, I could say, quando avevo 10 anni, andavo a nuotare in piscina. Once again, you know that I'm talking about the past because I'm giving you an age reference. When I was 10, I would go swimming in the pool. Okay? Once again, you have that feeling of something that happened in the past and that is no longer happening now, but you have an age reference or a childhood memory. You're going to be using imperfetto when you're describing the situation of a specific event, when you're basically listing different things that are happening in that context. Very often in this case, you will be using the word mentre, which means while. Let's look at this example. Mentre correvo nel parco, ho ricevuto una chiamata importante. While I was running in the park, I received an important phone call. In this case, you're giving extra information. So you're telling people where you were and what happened when you were there. So I'm telling you I was running in the park and also that somebody called me. So I'm giving you a list of different information to describe the situation. Very often you will read imperfetto when you're reading stories. Like if you read a sentence like this. La neve scendeva e imbiancava le montagne. This means the snow was falling and the mountains were becoming white. So I'm describing what was happening and a series of the events that sort of help you get more context out of the situation. You will use imperfetto to talk about how people felt in the past, and this is in terms of health, behavior, or also feelings. Let's look at some examples. Stamattina avevo il mal di testa. This means this morning I had a headache. So I'm telling you about my health conditions of this morning, so of an event of the past. Ieri mattina Luca stava male. This translates to yesterday morning Luca wasn't feeling well. Could be health, it could be emotional, it could be physical, okay? I'm telling you how he was in the past, which is yesterday morning. Alle medie avevo una cotta per Paolo. This translates to, in middle school, I had a crush on Paolo. In this case, I'm talking about feelings, okay? So how I felt, romantically speaking, for another person when I was in middle school, so in a moment of time in the past. You can use imperfetto to talk about the personality traits of people in the past. For example, mio nonno era molto saggio. My grandfather was very wise. In this case, unfortunately, it gives you the idea that he is no longer here. So I'm talking about the past. And I'm giving you an idea of how wise he was, okay? So I'm giving you an idea of his character. Mia zia era alta, bella e intelligente. Once again, I'm talking about my aunt, and this translates to my aunt was tall, beautiful, and smart. Once again, you're using imperfetto, you're talking about the past, so it's understood that this person is no longer alive. But in this sentence, you're also describing how that person was. Okay, this is an overall view of how and when to use imperfetto. You now know how to conjugate it, so what I suggest is that you review my other video on passato prossimo and you patiently wait for the new video to come out where I compare passato prossimo to imperfetto, and so you can learn when to use one and when to use the other. There are a couple of books that I suggest that you purchase if you want to do some exercises on imperfetto. I will write the links below this video so that you can check them out on Amazon. Okay, this is it for today. See you next time. Un bacione. Ciao.